Captain Jake Morrison stood at the center of the bridge, watching the huge crystal structure grow larger on the main screen. The used Defiance was humanity's best ship, but it looked tiny next to the alien station floating in the dark of space. His hands gripped the metal railing as he studied the strange building that seemed to glow with its own light. "Sir, we're getting close to the meeting point," said Lieutenant Ben Walsh from his control station. His young face showed worry as he checked the readings on his screen. Jake nodded, but kept his eyes on the view ahead. 3 months ago, the message had come from the Zephyrian Empire. All species in this part of the galaxy were ordered to send representatives to what they called a demonstration of galactic order. The message had been polite but firm. It was not really a request. Commander Lisa Taylor walked up beside him, holding a tablet with information about their mission. She was one of the smartest officers Jake had ever worked with, and right now her face showed the same concern he felt. "Captain, I've been reading the intelligence reports again," she said quietly. "The other species that got this message, they're all much more advanced than us. Some have been traveling space for thousands of years." Jake looked at the data on her tablet. Pictures showed the other ships that had already arrived. The Kravix had brought vessels that looked like floating cities, dark and covered with what looked like insect parts. The Luminari ships bent light around them, making them hard to look at directly. The Axiom Collective had geometric shapes that hurt to think about, all perfect angles and impossible designs. "How many species total?" Jake asked. 12, including us," Lisa replied. "We're the newest ones to reach space travel. Most of the others have been part of galactic politics for centuries." The communication system made a soft beep. "Captain Morrison," came the voice of Communications Officer Amy Foster. "We're receiving docking instructions from the Zephyrian station." Jake walked over to her station. "Put it on speaker, Amy." The voice that came through the speakers was clearly not human, even through the translation software. It sounded like metal scraping against stone, but the words were clear enough. "Human vessel, you will dock at Bay 17. Your delegation will consist of no more than 5 individuals. No weapons of any kind are permitted. You will be escorted to the throne chamber immediately upon arrival." Communication ended without waiting for a response. "Friendly bunch," muttered Chief Engineer Tim Brooks from his station at the back of the bridge. Jake turned to Lisa. "Who are we taking?" She had already prepared for this question. "Admiral Roy Clark is leading the delegation," he insisted on coming himself when he heard about this meeting. "Dr. Nina Brooks will represent our scientific community. Colonel Pete Hughes for military perspective. And the Admiral requested that you come as well, sir." "That's only 4, Jake pointed out. "The Admiral said he wanted to keep one spot open, depending on what we find when we get there." Jake nodded. Admiral Clark was smart like that, always keeping options open. The old man had been in space longer than anyone else in the human fleet, and he understood alien politics better than most. The Defiance moved slowly toward the docking bay. As they got closer, Jake could see the station more clearly. It was made of some kind of crystal material that seemed to change color as they watched. The whole structure was enormous, easily 10 times bigger than the largest human space station. "Sir," said Amy from Communications, "I'm picking up chatter from the other ships. It sounds like some kind of waiting area where all the delegations are gathering. Can you understand any of it? Bits and pieces?" "The translation software is having trouble with some of the languages. But I think they're talking about us," Lisa frowned. "About us specifically?" "Yes, ma'am. I keep hearing what translates to the new ones and the weak ones." Jake felt a cold feeling in his stomach. Being called weak before they even started was not a good sign. The docking process took another hour. The Zephyrian station used technology that was completely different from human systems, and Chief Brooks had to work hard to make the connections work. Finally, the ship settled into place with a soft thud that ran through the hull. Admiral Clark was waiting in the docking bay when Jake arrived. The old man was in his dress uniform, looking calm and confident despite the situation. Dr. Nina Brooks stood beside him, clutching a datapad with information about human achievements and technology. Colonel Pete Hughes looked like he always did before a dangerous mission, alert and ready for trouble. "Captain Morrison," Admiral Clark said with a nod. "Ready for this?" "As ready as anyone can be for their first galactic political meeting, sir," Jake replied. The airlock opened with a hiss of equalizing pressure. Two Zephyrian guards waited on the other side, and Jake got his first close look at the aliens who had summoned them. They were tall, maybe 8 feet, with bodies that looked like they were made of the same crystal material as their station. Their skin changed colors slowly, shifting from blue to green to purple. Each one had 4 arms and legs that seemed too long for their bodies. Their faces were the strangest part, with 4 eyes arranged in a square pattern and mouths that opened in 3 directions. "Human delegation," one of the guards said through a small device attached to its chest. "You will follow. Do not touch anything. Do not speak unless given permission. Do not make sudden movements." They walked through corridors that seemed to be carved from single pieces of crystal. The walls glowed with soft light that came from somewhere inside the material itself. Other alien delegations moved through the hallways, and Jake tried not to stare at the incredible variety of life forms. A group of Kravix passed by, looking like giant insects walking on their back legs. Their compound eyes glittered as they looked at the humans. One of them made a sound like clicking that the translation device turned into laughter. Further down the corridor, 3 luminari floated past. They looked like beings made of pure energy, constantly shifting between different colors and brightness levels. Jake couldn't tell if they were looking at the humans or not, since they didn't seem to have eyes in any normal sense. "Impressive, isn't it?" Dr. Brooks whispered as they walked. "Intimidating is more like it," Colonel Hughes replied quietly. The guards led them through a series of larger corridors until they reached a massive set of doors that must have been 30 feet tall. The crystal material here was different, darker, and more complex, with patterns that seemed to move when Jake wasn't looking directly at them. "Beyond these doors is the throne chamber of King Vorthek," one of the guards announced. "You will show proper respect. You will not speak unless the king gives you permission. You will remember that you are guests here." The way the guard said guests made it clear that they were something much less welcome than that. The doors opened without any visible mechanism, sliding apart to reveal a chamber so large that the far end disappeared into shadows. The ceiling was lost somewhere high above them, and the walls curved away in all directions. In the center of the room, a massive throne rose from the floor, also made of the same crystal material but much more elaborate, and sitting on that throne was King Vorthak himself. Jake had seen pictures, but nothing had prepared him for the reality. The alien king was huge, at least 12 feet tall even sitting down. His crystal skin was darker than the guards, almost black, with veins of silver running through it. His 4 eyes were each the size of Jake's fist, and they all focused on the human delegation as they entered around the chamber. Representatives from the other 11 species waited in designated areas. Jake could feel their attention on his group. As they were led to a small section near the front, King Vorthak's voice filled the chamber when he spoke, deep and resonating like thunder in the mountains. "So these are the humans," he said, and even through the translation device, Jake could hear the contempt. "The newest species to stumble into our galaxy. How very disappointing." King Vorthak rose from his throne, his massive crystal body catching the light from the chamber walls. Each of his 4 eyes studied the human delegation like they were insects under a microscope. Admiral Clark kept his face calm, but Jake could see the tension in the old man's shoulders. "Welcome, representatives of the galactic community," the alien king announced. His voice echoed through the enormous chamber, reaching every corner where the other delegations waited. "Today you will witness the proper order of our galaxy." The king gestured with one of his 4 arms, and the air above the throne began to glow. Slowly, holographic images appeared, floating in the space above their heads. The first image showed a massive hive structure floating in space, dark and organic-looking. "Behold the mighty Kravix," King Vorthak said. "Masters of biological engineering. Their hive ships house billions of warriors. They have conquered 300 star systems through the power of their collective mind and endless numbers. Jake looked over at the Kravix delegation. The insect-like beings stood perfectly still, their compound eyes reflecting the holographic light. One of them made a clicking sound that the translation device turned into words of agreement. The image changed to show beings of pure energy moving through space without any ships at all. They looked like living stars, bright and constantly shifting. The ancient luminari, the king continued. They have existed for 50,000 years. They feed on the energy of stars themselves. They can travel faster than light without any technology. They have transcended the need for physical form. The luminari delegation glowed brighter for a moment, which Jake guessed was their way of showing pleasure at the praise. Next came images of geometric ships that seemed to fold space around themselves. The vessels changed shape constantly, never settling into any form that made sense to human eyes. The Axiom Collective, King Vorthak announced. They gave up biological bodies long ago. Now they exist as pure intelligence inside mechanical forms. They can process information faster than any organic brain. They have solved mathematical problems that other species cannot even understand. Each delegation was introduced with similar praise. The thermal showed control over heat and cold that let them live on any world. The scions could read minds and move objects with thought alone. The shapers could change their bodies into any form they needed. The void walkers could step between dimensions. Jake felt smaller with each description. Every species seemed to have abilities that humans could not even dream of. They were like gods compared to his people. Finally, the holograms changed to show human colonies and ships. The images looked pathetic next to what had come before. Small metal vessels moving slowly through space. Tiny settlements on a few dozen worlds. People in bulky spacesuits struggling to survive in environments that other species found comfortable. And, then we have humanity, King Vorthak said. His mandibles clicked together, and what Jake had learned was the Zephyrian version of laughter. Several other delegations made sounds that the translators turned into amusement. A species barely 300 years into space travel, the king continued. They have no natural armor to protect them, no energy manipulation abilities, no hive mind to coordinate their actions, no mechanical enhancements to improve their capabilities. They are soft, weak creatures who need artificial environments just to survive outside their birth world. Dr. Nina Brooks stepped forward, clutching her datapad. Your Majesty, humanity has made remarkable progress in science and technology. We have developed faster than light travel, advanced computers, and medical treatments that have extended our lifespans significantly. Silence. King Vorthak's roar shook the crystal walls of the chamber. The sound was so loud that Jake felt it in his bones. You will speak only when given permission, little creature. Dr. Brooks stepped back, her face red with embarrassment and anger. Colonel Hughes moved slightly closer to her, his hand moving toward where his weapon would normally be if he had been allowed to bring one. Your species is here to learn its place in the galactic order, the king announced. You are workers at best, servants to your betters. Perhaps pets if you prove entertaining enough. The alien ruler activated another set of holograms showing human military forces. Their ships looked crude compared to the organic hive vessels of the Kravix or the energy constructs of the Luminari. Human soldiers in their armor seemed clumsy next to beings who had natural weapons and defenses. Your largest warships carry primitive projectile weapons, King Vorthak said with obvious disdain. You fire chunks of metal at your enemies while others wield plasma that can melt through any armor or antimatter that can destroy entire fleets with a single shot. The images showed human soldiers in their combat gear, carrying rifles and wearing metal plates. Your warriors wear crude metal protection while others have natural carapaces harder than any manufactured material, or energy shields that can stop any attack. Jake watched the other delegations as King Vorthak spoke. Some seemed bored, like this was old news to them. Others watched with what looked like pity. A few, including the Kravix, seemed to find the whole thing amusing. You have no psychic abilities, the king continued. No natural longevity that lets you accumulate knowledge over centuries. No collective consciousness that allows instant communication across vast distances. You cannot change your shape to adapt to new environments. You cannot manipulate energy. With your thoughts, the list went on and on. Every advantage that other species possessed, humans lacked. Every strength that made the other delegations powerful, humanity did not have. You are, quite simply, the weakest species to ever reach the stars, King Vorthak declared. The fact that you survived long enough to leave your homeworld is nothing short of miraculous. Perhaps your planet had no real predators to eliminate. The weak, Admiral Clark's jaw tightened, but he remained silent. Jake could see the old soldier struggling to control his temper. Around them, the other alien species observed with mixtures of amusement and pity. King Vorthak gestured again, and new images appeared. These showed human colonies struggling against hostile environments, human ships limping back to port after difficult missions, human soldiers injured in conflicts with better-equipped enemies. Your people die from diseases that others are immune. Tio, the king said, you age and weaken while others remain strong for millennia. You fight among yourselves while others work in perfect harmony. You are limited to one body form while others can adapt to any situation. The Shapers made a sound like wind chimes that the translator turned into laughter. Their ability to change form was clearly a source of great pride. Even your breeding is inefficient, King Vorthak continued. You produce 1 or 2 offspring at a time, requiring years of care before they become useful. The Kravix can birth thousands of warriors in a single cycle. The Axiom simply build new bodies when they need more workers. Dr. Brooks looked like she wanted to argue again, but Colonel Hughes put a warning hand on her arm. This was not the time to make their situation worse. Your technology requires rare materials that you must mine from asteroids and planets. The king said, others can simply create what they need from energy or grow it from biological processes. You are dependent on complex supply chains while others are self-sufficient. The chamber fell quiet as King Vorthak finished his speech. The silence stretched uncomfortably long as the alien ruler looked down at the human delegation. His 4 eyes seemed to be studying them like specimens in a laboratory. Do you understand now why you were summoned here? The king asked. His voice was softer now, but somehow more threatening. This is not a meeting of equals. This is a lesson in reality. You are children playing with toys you barely understand, stumbling around in a universe far too dangerous for creatures like you. Jake felt anger building in his chest, but he forced himself to remain calm. Getting emotional now would only prove the alien king's point about human weakness. The other species here have found their roles in the galactic community, King. Vorthak continued. The Kravix provide military force. The Luminari offer energy manipulation. The Axiom handle complex calculations. Each contributes according to their strengths. The king paused, letting his words sink in. Your role will be much simpler. You will provide manual labor where it is needed. You will serve those better equipped to make important decisions. You will accept guidance from your superiors without question. The word superiors hung in the air like a physical weight. Jake could feel the other delegations watching to see how the humans would respond to this ultimate insult. King Vorthak descended from his massive throne, each step sending vibrations through the crystal floor. His 12-foot frame towered over the human delegation as he moved closer. The other alien species watched silently, some leaning forward in anticipation of what would come next. To make this lesson complete, the alien king announced, his voice filling every corner of the vast chamber, I will offer humanity a demonstration of their proper place in the galactic order. Admiral Clark straightened his shoulders but remained silent. Jake could see the old man's hands clenched behind his back, fighting to control his anger. I propose a challenge, King Vorthak continued. Your species may select any contest you wish, any test of strength, skill, intelligence, or ability. When you inevitably fail, humanity will formally accept vassal status under the Zephyrian Empire. You will provide labor and resources as we direct. You will follow our guidance in all matters of galactic importance." The chamber became completely quiet. Jake could hear his own heartbeat in the silence. This was not what anyone had expected. A challenge that would determine humanity's entire future in the galaxy. Dr. Brooks whispered urgently to Admiral Clark, "Sir, this could be a trap. If we lose, we become slaves to their empire." Colonel Hughes leaned in close. "Admiral, we need to think about this carefully. They wouldn't offer a challenge unless they were certain they could win." Admiral Clark studied King Vorthak's face, trying to read the alien's intentions. "And if we succeed?" he asked quietly. The question seemed to surprise King Vorthak. For a moment, his mandibles stopped clicking, and all four of his eyes focused on the human admiral. Then he began to laugh. The sound was like rocks grinding together, harsh and grating. The laughter spread through the chamber. The Kraveks made their clicking sounds of amusement. The luminary pulsed brighter with what Jake assumed was their version of laughter. Even. The emotionless Axiom Collective made mechanical sounds that suggested humor. "Success?" King Vorthak managed to say between bursts of laughter. "You speak of success as if it were possible." "Very well, I will humor this fantasy. If by some impossible cosmic accident you were to prevail, the Zephyrian Empire would grant humanity full membership in the Galactic Council." He gestured to encompass all the other delegations. "You would have the same rights and privileges as these ancient and powerful species. Your worlds would be protected under galactic law. Your trade routes would be secured. Your people would be respected as equals." The offer was incredible. Full membership in the Galactic Council was something humanity had hoped for but never expected to achieve for centuries. It would change everything for the human race. "But such an outcome is impossible," King Vorthak added. "You are weak, primitive creatures. No matter what challenge you choose, you will fail. I am offering this only to make your defeat more complete and educational." Admiral Clark looked at his companions. Dr. Brooks was studying her datapad, probably, reviewing everything they knew about the various alien species and their capabilities. Colonel Hughes was thinking like a soldier, trying to find any possible advantage. Captain Morrison was watching the other delegations, noting their reactions. Jake could see some of the aliens looking bored, as if the outcome was already decided. Others seemed curious about what humans might choose. The thermal delegation was radiating heat in patterns that suggested impatience. The Scions had their large heads tilted as if trying to read human thoughts. "We need a moment to discuss this," Admiral Clark said. "Of course," King Vorthak replied with another grinding laugh. "Take all the time you need to choose your method of defeat." The human delegation huddled together. Their voices were too quiet for the translation devices to pick up, but Jake knew the other species were probably trying to listen anyway. "What are our options?" Admiral Clark asked. Dr. Brooks consulted her datapad. "Intelligence competition is out. The Axiom Collective can process information millions of times faster than human brains. Technology contest favors the Luminari or Shapers. Any kind of mental challenge puts us against the Scions." "Physical strength?" Colonel Hughes suggested. "The Kraveks are stronger than any human could be," Dr. Brooks replied. "The thermal can survive in environments that would kill us instantly. The Voidwalkers can manipulate space itself." Jake listened to the discussion and realized something. "What if we're thinking about this wrong?" The others looked at him. "What do you mean?" Admiral Clark asked. "Every species here has incredible abilities," Jake said. "But those abilities also make them specialists. The Kraveks are built for swarming attacks. The Luminari manipulate energy. The Axiom process data. Each one is perfect for what they do." "And?" Colonel Hughes prompted. "And maybe that's exactly their weakness. They're so specialized that they can't adapt to something outside their area of expertise." Dr. Brooks frowned. "But we don't have any special abilities." "That's the whole problem." "No," Jake said slowly, an idea forming in his mind. "That's our advantage. We had to learn to adapt to everything because we didn't have any natural advantages. Every predator on Earth was stronger, faster, or better armed than us. We survived by learning to outthink them. Admiral Clark was beginning to understand. You're suggesting we need a challenge that requires adaptation rather than raw ability. Exactly. Something that changes the rules as it goes. Something that requires flexible thinking instead of specialized power. Colonel Hughes nodded slowly. I think I know what you're getting at. We have one advantage none of them mentioned. What's that? Dr. Brooks asked. The Titan project, Hughes said quietly. It finished testing last month. Captain Danny Richards volunteered for the full program. Admiral Clark's eyes widened slightly. The Titan project was classified, but everyone at the highest levels knew about it. It was humanity's answer to the physical superiority of other species they might encounter. That's risky, Dr. Brooks said. We don't know how it would perform against alien physiology. It's our best shot, Admiral Clark decided. Maybe our only shot, the Admiral turned back to King Vorthek. The alien ruler was waiting patiently, clearly confident that no human choice would matter. We have made our decision, Admiral Clark announced, his voice carrying clearly through the crystal chamber. Excellent, King Vorthek replied. What form will your defeat take? Admiral Clark looked directly into the alien king's 4 eyes. We choose single combat. One representative from humanity against one of yours. No weapons, no technology, no assistance from either side. Pure physical confrontation. The chamber fell completely silent. Even the ambient sounds of the alien life support system seemed to stop. King Vorthok's mandibles stopped clicking. Several of the other delegations made sounds of surprise. You challenged the Zephyrian Empire to physical combat? King Vorthok's voice carried genuine disbelief. Our warriors are bred specifically for battle. They train from the moment they can walk. They are enhanced with biomechanical implants that make them faster and stronger than any natural creature. The alien king gestured to a section of the chamber where several Zephyrian guards stood. Even the guards were impressive, 8 feet tall with crystal armor that seemed to be part of their bodies. My champion has never known defeat, King Vorthok continued. He has fought representatives from 6 different species and emerged victorious every time. He is the perfect fusion of natural Zephyrian strength and technological enhancement. Nevertheless, Admiral Clark replied firmly, that is our choice? King Vorthek stared at the humans for a long moment. His 4 eyes moved from one face to another, as if trying to understand what could possibly make them think this was a good idea. Your species continues to surprise me with new depths of foolishness, he said finally. Very well. Tomorrow, in the great arena, my champion Krexith will face your representative. The contest will be broadcast to all member species of the Galactic Council. He leaned forward, bringing his massive face closer to the human delegation. This will be educational for the entire galaxy. They will see what happens when primitive species overreach their capabilities. The alien king straightened up and addressed the entire chamber. All delegations will witness this contest tomorrow. It will serve as a reminder of the natural order of our galaxy. As the various species began to file out of the throne chamber, King Vorthok made one final comment to the humans. I suggest you use this evening to prepare any final messages for your homeworld. Tomorrow will be the last day that humanity can claim to be a free species. Jake felt a chill run down his spine, but Admiral Clark's expression remained calm and determined. We'll see, the old admiral replied quietly. King Vorthek's laughter followed them as they left the chamber, the sound echoing off the crystal walls like the promise of doom. The arena was massive, easily 3 times larger than any sports stadium on Earth. The floor was made of the same crystal material as the rest of the station, but this crystal was darker and seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Above, the curved ceiling disappeared into shadows, making the space feel endless. Representatives from all 12 species filled the observation decks that ringed the arena. Jake could see thousands of aliens looking down at the combat area, their various forms creating a bizarre mixture of shapes and colors. The excitement in the air was almost physical. Like electricity before a storm, King Vorthok sat in the largest observation box, his massive form clearly visible even from the arena floor. His 4 eyes glowed brighter than usual, reflecting his anticipation of the coming victory. "Ladies, gentlemen, and beings of all forms," announced a Zephyrian voice that echoed through the arena, "today you will witness a contest that will determine the fate of an entire species." The crowd made various sounds of approval. Clicking from the Kravix, humming from the Luminari, mechanical beeps from the Axiom Collective. To Jake, it sounded like they were all looking forward to watching humanity be crushed. "Entering first," the announcer continued, "Champion Krex of the Zephyrian Empire." A section of the arena wall slid open, and the Zephyrian champion emerged. Jake felt his stomach drop at the sight. Krex was enormous, even by Zephyrian standards. He stood 15 feet tall, his crystal body enhanced with metal implants that gleamed under the arena lights. His forearms ended in claws that looked sharp, enough to cut through steel. The champion moved with surprising grace for something so large. He demonstrated his speed by crossing half the arena in 3 quick steps. Then he showed his strength by punching a practiced target that exploded into fragments. The crowd roared approval as pieces of the target scattered across the arena floor. Krex's biomechanical enhancements were clearly visible. Metal cables ran under his crystal skin, probably enhancing his muscle strength. His claws extended and retracted with mechanical precision. Red lights glowed in his 4 eyes, suggesting some kind of targeting system. "This warrior has never been defeated," the announcer proclaimed. "He has faced champions from 6 different species and emerged victorious every time. His strength is legendary, his speed unmatched, his skill perfected through centuries of training." The alien champion raised all 4 arms above his head, and the crowd responded with another wave of cheering. He looked unstoppable, like a machine built specifically for destroying enemies. "And now," the announcer continued, "the challenger from humanity." The opposite wall opened, and Captain Danny Richards stepped into the arena. The cheering stopped. Immediately. The silence was so complete that Jake could hear his own breathing. Every eye in the arena focused on the human champion, and Jake could almost feel their confusion. Danny looked exactly like what he was, a normal human being. He stood 6 feet tall, which made him tiny compared to his opponent. He wore simple, exercise clothes that showed he was in good physical condition, but nothing about him suggested superhuman abilities. No visible enhancements, no natural weapons, no intimidating features. To the assembled aliens, he must have looked like a child who had wandered into an adult fight. "This is humanity's champion?" King Vorthok's voice carried clearly through the arena, amplified by the same system the announcer used. "I almost feel guilty about what is going to happen." Some nervous laughter rippled through the crowd. A few of the aliens made sounds that suggested pity. The thermal delegation was radiating heat in patterns that their psychology profiles said indicated embarrassment for the humans. Danny walked to the center of the arena, seemingly unaware of the thousands of eyes watching him. He looked calm, almost relaxed. When he reached the middle of the combat area, he began a series of simple stretching exercises. "The rules are simple," the announcer explained. "No weapons, no technology, no assistance from outside the arena. The contest continues until one fighter cannot continue or formally surrenders. Victory means freedom and full galactic citizenship for humanity. Defeat means eternal service to the Zephyrian Empire." Krexith crouched into a fighting stance, his 4 arms spread wide and his claws extended. Metal components in his body hummed with power as various enhancement systems activated. His targeting system painted red dots of light across Danny's body, marking vital points. Danny finished his stretching and stood normally, his hands relaxed at his sides. He didn't look like he was preparing for a fight. He looked like he was getting ready for a casual jog. "Begin." The announcer shouted. Krex immediately launched himself forward with tremendous speed. His enhanced legs propelled him across the arena floor like a missile. His 4 claws aimed directly at Danny's torso, moving fast enough to blur. Danny didn't try to dodge the attack. Instead, he stepped forward, moving into the charge rather than away from it. What happened next made the entire arena gasp. As Krexith's claws reached him, Danny caught the alien's right wrist with his left hand. At the same moment, he used Krexith's momentum against him. Pivoting and throwing the massive warrior over his shoulder, Krexith flew through the air and crashed into the arena wall with a sound like breaking glass. Crystal fragments scattered across the floor as the Zephyrian champion hit hard, enough to crack the wall behind him. The silence in the arena was deafening. No one seemed able to believe what they had just seen. Krexith rose quickly, shaking crystal dust from his body. His red targeting lights flickered as his systems recalibrated. This time he approached more carefully, circling Danny while looking for an opening. The alien warrior feinted left, then struck right with two arms simultaneously, trying to overwhelm the human's defenses. Danny ducked under the first strike, deflected the second with his forearm, and delivered a precise blow to Krexith's knee joint. The impact sent sparks flying from the alien's biomechanical enhancement. Krexith stumbled, his left leg not responding properly. Warning lights began flashing along the metal cables under his skin. "Impossible," King Vorthak whispered, but his voice was picked up by the arena's audio system and broadcast to everyone present. Krexith roared in frustration and anger. He charged again, this time using all four arms in a spinning attack that would have shredded any normal opponent. Danny seemed to dance around the strikes, always moving just enough to avoid being hit while looking for opportunities to counterattack. When the spinning attack ended, Danny was behind the alien champion. He grabbed Krexith's right rear arm and twisted, using leverage and joint manipulation to send the massive warrior sprawling across the arena floor. The crowd was beginning to make sounds of amazement, rather than disappointment. Even the other species were starting to realize that something extraordinary was happening. Krexith got up more slowly this time. His targeting system was having trouble keeping up with Danny's movements. The human seemed to predict every attack before it happened, always positioning himself perfectly to turn the alien's strength against him. The pattern continued for the next 20 minutes. Krexith had superior strength, speed, and natural weapons, but every attack was countered. Every show of power was turned into a weakness. Danny used perfect timing, precise technique, and flawless strategy to control the entire fight. The alien champion began to slow down. His biomechanical enhancements were overheating from constant use. Sparks flew from damaged components. His movements became less coordinated as his enhancement systems failed one by one. Danny, meanwhile, showed no signs of fatigue. He moved with the same calm precision he had shown at the beginning, as if the fight was exactly what he had expected. Finally, Krexith made one last desperate attack, putting all his remaining strength into a four-armed strike aimed at crushing his opponent completely. Danny caught all four arms at once, twisted, and threw the massive alien warrior across the arena. Krexith hit the floor hard and didn't get up. His enhancement system sparked once more, then went dark. The arena fell completely silent. Danny stood over his defeated opponent, breathing hard but clearly victorious. In the observation boxes, 12 alien species stared in stunned disbelief at what they had just witnessed. The weakest species in the galaxy had just defeated the strongest warrior the Zephyrian Empire could produce. King Vorthak's four eyes were wide with shock. For the first time since the humans had arrived, he wasn't laughing. The arena remained silent for what felt like hours, though it was probably only minutes. Thousands of alien beings stared at the impossible scene below them. The greatest warrior of the Zephyrian Empire lay unconscious on the crystal floor, defeated by a human who looked like he could have been anyone's neighbor. Danny Richards stood over Krexith's motionless form, his chest rising and falling as he caught his breath. Sweat covered his face, but he was clearly uninjured. He looked up at the observation decks, meeting the stares of species that had dismissed humanity as weak and worthless. King Vorthak was the first to break the silence. His voice, normally so confident and commanding, came out as barely a whisper that the arena's audio system amplified for everyone to hear. "How That single word seemed to unlock something in the crowd. Sounds of confusion and amazement began to ripple through the observation decks. The clicking of Kravik's mandibles, the humming of luminary energy fields, the mechanical beeping of Axiom processors all merged into a chorus of bewilderment. Admiral Clark stepped forward into the arena, his dress uniform somehow still looking crisp despite everything that had happened. Behind him came Dr. Nina Brooks, Colonel Pete Hughes, and Captain Jake Morrison. They walked with the quiet confidence of people who had just seen their greatest gamble pay off. "Your Majesty," Admiral Clark said, his voice carrying clearly through the arena, "you made one critical error in your assessment of humanity. King." Vorthik descended from his observation box, his massive crystal form moving with none of the arrogant confidence he had shown before. His 4 eyes never left the human delegation as he approached the arena floor. "What error?" the alien king asked. "You saw our lack of natural weapons and concluded we were weak," Admiral Clark replied. "You saw our need for artificial environments and thought we were fragile. You noticed our technological limitations and decided we were primitive." Dr. Brooks joined the conversation, her research pad forgotten as she spoke from memory. "What you failed to understand is that every challenge our species faced made us stronger. We had no claws, so we learned to fight with our minds. We had no armor, so we learned to avoid damage entirely. We had no enhancements, so we perfected technique." The other alien delegations had come down to the arena floor, forming a loose circle around the humans. Jake could see the confusion in their various forms of body language. These were species that had ruled the galaxy for millennia, and they were struggling to understand what they had just witnessed. Colonel Hughes stepped forward. "Every predator on our homeworld was faster, stronger, or better armed than us. We survived by becoming the most adaptable hunters in our planet's history. We learned to turn every opponent's strength into their weakness." A representative from the Kraviks made a clicking sound that translated as a question. "But surely this individual is exceptional among your species?" Danny Richards smiled for the first time since entering the arena. "Sir, with respect, I'm barely in the top 10% of human combatants. Our military training produces thousands like me every year." The revelation hit the alien delegates like a physical blow. Several of them stepped backward. The luminary flickered rapidly, which Jake had learned indicated extreme agitation. Dr. Brooks continued the explanation. "Every species here evolved to fill a specific role in their environment. You became incredibly powerful within your specializations, but you lost the ability to adapt beyond them. Humans never had that luxury." She gestured to each delegation in turn. "The Kraviks perfected swarm tactics but struggle with individual combat. The Luminari can manipulate energy but have difficulty with physical matter. The Axiom can process vast amounts of data but lack creative problem solving. We had to become generalists," Admiral Clark added. "We had to learn to overcome any challenge, no matter how impossible it seemed. That's how we survived when everything on our world was trying to kill us." King Vorthik looked around at the other alien leaders, seeing new understanding in their various expressions. The thermal delegation was radiating heat in patterns that suggested deep thought. The Science had their large heads tilted as if trying to process this new information. Even the emotionless Axiom Collective was making rapid calculation sounds. "But your technology is still primitive," protested a Shaper representative. "Your ships are slow, your weapons are crude." "Our technology is different," Dr. Brooks replied. "We build things that can be repaired, modified, and adapted. Your ships are faster, but they can only do what they were designed for." "Our ships can be reconfigured for new missions?" Jake spoke up for the first time. "You all have incredible abilities, but those abilities come with limitations. You can do amazing things within your specialties, but you struggle when faced with something outside your expertise. Humans don't have that problem," Colonel Hughes continued. "We've never been able to rely on one advantage, so we learn to be flexible. We can adapt our tactics, our technology, even our thinking to meet any situation." Danny Richards was helping medical personnel tend to the unconscious Crext H. The alien warrior was beginning to stir, his biomechanical system slowly coming back online. How did you defeat our champion? King Vorthak asked Danny directly. Danny looked up from where he was checking Krexith's injuries. He was stronger and faster than me, sir. But he fought like someone who had never lost before. He relied on his advantages without considering what would happen if those advantages were neutralized. I studied recordings of his previous fights, Danny continued. He always won quickly using overwhelming force. He never learned to adapt. When his first strategy failed, Krexith's eyes opened, focusing slowly on the human who had defeated him. Instead of anger, Jake was surprised to see something like respect in the alien warrior's expression. You fought well, Krex said to Danny, his voice weak but clear. I have never faced an opponent who could turn my own strength against me. You're a skilled warrior, Danny replied. If you had trained against more varied opponents, this fight might have gone differently. The exchange seemed to crystallize something for King Vorthak. He looked around at all the assembled delegates, then back at the humans who had just changed his understanding of the galaxy. The Galactic Council recognizes humanity's victory, he announced formally. You have earned full membership and all. Accompanying rights and privileges? The other delegates made various sounds of agreement. Even those who had seemed most dismissive of humanity now looked at the human delegation with new respect. There will be paperwork to complete, added an Axiom representative. Trade agreements to negotiate, territory boundaries to establish, defense pacts to consider. We look forward to working with all of you, Admiral Clark replied. But as equals, not as servants or pets? As the various delegations began to disperse, King Vorthak approached Admiral Clark privately. His massive form no longer seemed quite so intimidating. I underestimated your species, the alien king admitted. I will not make that mistake again? Your Majesty, Admiral Clark replied, humanity doesn't seek domination over other species. We seek cooperation and mutual benefit, but never mistake our desire for peace as weakness. We've spent our entire evolutionary history proving that strength comes in many forms, Colonel Hughes added. King Vorthak nodded slowly. I am beginning to understand that. Your species may be the most dangerous opponents I have ever encountered, precisely because you don't appear dangerous at all. As the human delegation prepared to return to their ship, Jake looked back at the arena where everything had changed. The dark crystal floor still bore scorch marks from Krexith's damaged enhancements, and pieces of the shattered practice target lay scattered around the edges. Think they'll remember this? He asked Admiral Clark. The old admiral smiled grimly. Captain, I have a feeling that every species in this galaxy will remember the day they learn that the most dangerous predator is often the one that doesn't look dangerous at all. Double quotes, Dr. Brooks was already making notes on her pad. We'll need to update our diplomatic protocols. The other species are going to approach us very differently from now on. Good, Colonel Hughes said. Respect is easier to work with than pity. As they walked through the corridors of the alien station, Jake noticed that the other species representatives moved aside to let them pass. Not out of fear, but out of a new understanding that humanity had earned its place among the stars. The human ships departed the Zephyrian station with full galactic citizenship, new trade agreements, and most importantly, the respect of species that had ruled the galaxy for thousands of years. King Vorthak watched them go from his observation deck, no longer laughing. In the depths of space, humanity had just announced its presence to the galaxy not as victims or servants, but as equals who had earned their place through the oldest currency in the universe, victory against impossible odds. The galaxy would never be the same.